There's still, so if people want to sit, you can sit. There are still some seats. Sven, you want to take a prime? So there's still here left to the camera seats if you like to take those. Massimo, I see here. Yes, good. Bernard, you can also sit. You stand, okay. Okay, again, I'm introducing this panel. First of all, I'm introducing a panel, but also I would like to introduce to you Paolo Antonelli, who needs no introduction, but introduce to you why, because as I said, DLD is now in its 5th year, and it's always this, supported by friends, you know, who help us, and to bring friends and to bring iconic people, to bring grand thinkers and people look to the future. And I think Paula is one of those who helps us so much. She's here 3rd time, and being the prime curator of design, maybe I would say in the world now, at MoMA. And some of Adam, are you here? Adam Bly? You can tell what was the last exhibition of Elastic Mind. I think it was one of the most successful exhibitions at MoMA in the last years.
I liked it.
Yes, yeah. You liked it. So this is really wonderful. So the agenda is very, very dense. You're going to Davos. You're the 3rd year here. And this year, again, you said you bring us a friend and an iconoclast and 2 others of your friends to talk about the future of design. And that is why we're very happy. And now the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marcel. I'm so embarrassed. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Very happy to see this room so full. We're going to talk about design in the future, but we're going to talk in particular about organic design. Why organic? Well, because the concerns that design is really busy with today are many, and they vary from the finiteness of resources to the need to insert an ethical dimension to design, many serious themes that usually immediately get people down and depressed as soon as you start talking about them. In truth, though, you can sum them all up with a beautiful, beautiful noun, a beautiful attribute, which is organic. If you think about it, organic design can be intended in many different ways, and throughout history it took on so many different dimensions and many different nuances. I mean, the very simple imitation of nature is something that has moved mankind since the very beginning. I mean, design has existed ever since people were able to actually manufacture tools, and nature has been the biggest teacher for craftsmen, designers, makers throughout history. And then it's come to signify the formal aspect of nature. If we only stick to the 20th century, we can look at Jugendstil, Liberty, and Art Nouveau, and all the imitations of nature that were not only formal, but also structural. And then in the 1950s, it took on a very interesting nuance, which is that of integrating different aspects of life. So for instance, in the United States, organic design in the 1950s was meant to have a new type of dwelling where all the different functions were integrated and flowing together. And then it's evolved, taking over new and new meanings as the technology advanced, until today it is a brand new and the same old organic design at the same time. I am condensing this introduction because we only have 45 minutes, but in truth, there's a very strong link between the imitation and learning from nature and technology. And the group that we have here today to discuss this is really, really strong exactly in this, using technology in the most sophisticated way possible to get closest to what nature can teach us. which is not only form, but also economy, using resources in the optimal way, without waste, reusing what is wasted in the first instance, and reprocessing the energy that is produced so that there's ultimately as little waste as possible. And all this with elegance and beauty. That's what organic design is today. It's high-tech, and at the same time, it's about material culture and the oldest structure that we know. And the people that we have today to talk about it are just quite amazing. Well, to my right, which is to your left, is Ross Lovegrove. Ross is one of the most well-known and celebrated designers in the world, and rightly so, because for the past 20-plus years, he's done nothing but churning out one innovation after the other, one amazing object after the other. He comes from Wales, but he's been living in London for a very long time. I like to say that you're Welsh, just like I like to say that I'm Sardinian. You know, it's like one of those little touches. But, you know, he's been living in London forever. And what bonded us is not just that he's a good designer and I'm a design curator, but that we have this absolute passion for materials. You know, the first show that I did at MoMA in '95 was entitled Mutant Materials in Contemporary Design, and Ross's work was already there. And then I remember when I went to visit his office the first time in London, and I'm talking about a long time ago, about 14 years ago, and he had this aluminum sponge, this material that was, I still have it, of course, this amazing material at that time. Now it's a little more used, but at that time, he gave me this little cube as a gift, saying, like, he was giving it to me as if it were a diamond, and I kept it like a diamond.
It was wrapped in a banana leaf, by the way.
Wrapped in a banana leaf. But, you know, this absolute passion for materials and this dedication to understanding what materials can do. He is obsessed with lightness. He is obsessed with what he calls organic essentialism, and he's going to talk about it later. And he is obsessed with what I consider modernity, which is trying to put your nose forward every single day without necessarily being in science fiction, ever pushing, but keeping your feet on the ground. So it will be wonderful to see what he has to show us today. And to my left are instead Andreas Vogler and Arturo Vittori. Arturo and Andreas are two architects. You know, here, labels mean nothing. Designer, architect. In truth, they're all working on new ways of living. New ways of living that are implemented by dwellings, are implemented by objects, are implemented by devices. It doesn't really matter. The goal is clearly a new way of living and not the object unto itself. Andreas and Vittorio, and Arturo, I'm sorry, last name Vittori. Andreas and Arturo, I encountered instead more recently when I was preparing an exhibition about design and safety, because I fell in love with what you'll see later, which is Desert Seal, this amazing nomadic tent for the desert that they actually built. It's actually now in the collection of MoMA. And they are interested in this kind of extreme dwellings and extreme situations. You'll see their space capsules, you'll see their spaces for environments in the desert. You know, they really like to look at extreme conditions and extract wisdom from those extreme conditions so that they can be applied also to our normal life. I'm going to structure the conversation this way. I wanted to really be able to ask them also your questions. So I'm going to make it as an interview. I'm going to start showing Ross's work first and then Andreas and Arturo's work later and ask them a few questions about the slides that you'll see, and then we'll start the conversation, because I'm sure that you'll have many questions too. So do I have any control on the slides? Only if I go there, right? So I'll go there. I'll go there, and in the meantime, okay, we can start by putting up the first slide, please. There we go. We start with Ross's work, with the idea of organic essentialism. And what we're seeing here are the DNA staircase that you did about, how many years ago? About 4 years ago, right? Yeah. And the ginkgo carbon tables that are just these beautifully stunning tables of carbon fiber that are instead 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, absolutely. So do you want to tell us a little more about your idea of organic essentialism? How do you condense your philosophy?
Yeah, well, is this working? Doesn't sound very loud to me. Is my mic on? Can you hear that? Okay.
They'll turn it on.
Okay. Oh, that's better. Okay. By the way, these are things which are self-funded that you see on the screen. They're not commissions from industry or clients, most clients or industry would not build things like that. So 50% of my studio is basic research. And it's because I do research that actually I have a process. And because I have a process, I think I do interesting things. So I'm always on the edge of risk because I'm self-funding a lot of these ideas. Organic Essentialism, or OE, which... OE, yeah, it's a bit easier to say. And thank you, Paula, because that introduction really helped me a lot. OE is something which, after sort of 25 years of working, I sort of managed to sort of collect and collate to find something which would drive everything that I would do. If you get up every day and everything is flowing in a different direction, you really are nobody. And when Hillary was playing the violin last night, I was amazed because she's a violinist and that's what she does. So we need a philosophy. Without a philosophy, you go nowhere. So organic essentialism means basically this. Organic, primarily meaning the way we think. It's not about form. We should think as three-dimensionally as possible. We should have a mind in a cloud, which creates a sort of organic neural network, which then creates possibilities. In terms of form, organic is a kind of nice, easy word, which unfortunately has been hijacked by food these days. But organic as a form is a form language, is still something which has a certain meaning. And historically, over the last 100 years, it would be really hard for us to identify even 30 people who worked with organic form in a good way, from Aalto to Naum Gabo to, if you went through the disciplines. Organic form creation is something very special, and it's born out of nature in my mind, the observation of nature. So that's the organic side. Then there's the essential side. I don't use the word minimalist because that's a trendy word, but essential means you can't get under essential. Essential means nothing more or nothing less than you need. So the work that I do, even with these pieces, is there as a sort of an undercurrent that fuels my industrial work. Industry produces things with heat and violence mainly. Cars are driven that way, and actually aircraft fly with violence. In the world of nature, things grow. They grow with a certain logic and purpose, and a tree... They
also kill each other.
Sorry?
They also kill each other.
They kill each other as well. We can come back to that. No, it's this idea that there is this logic and beauty in nature which is unquestionable. The difference between nature and human invention generally is like this. Nature actually has no purpose. It's not aiming towards anything. It just adapts. So the adaptation of nature is really interesting, but it moves at a glacial speed. You don't see nature evolve, really. And I think design should be in evolution. So here we are at the tertiary level of life, where human beings can sit down and say, in 1 year's time, we're going to have an organic LED television that's 4 millimeters thick, and we're going to show it. I think that's incredible. So the work that you see here, like the ginkgo carbon table, is there to promote ideologies which then could go into car design. Maybe how do we make cars lighter using creasing strategies, which makes the material stiffer. If you touch the table, it weighs 5 kilos. You can almost lift it like that. So it's the magic of technology that interests me, and also the fact that you can create from that a language of survival, which maybe we can talk about later.
And I moved now to your car on a stick.
Exactly.
Because I want to show all the different scales of your work. Because once again, one of the interesting aspects of organic design today is a sort of indifference to scale. Thinking big and thinking small at the same time, and applying the same philosophy and the same design process to buildings and objects alike.
Well, cars, that's my passion, the car. Because I haven't got round to designing one, and they don't let people like me design them because I'm an anti-oil man.
What? An anti?
Anti-oil. Not olive oil.
Well, they should really be able to use
Don't worry
you
about
now.
it. Don't worry about it. So it's this thing about there's an insanity in humanity that surrounds us, and part of that is the way that we make things. And coming back to that idea of a language of survival, the average car uses 30,000 components. I find that fundamentally wrong. That's 30,000 resources, that's 30,000 things which need to be recycled or can go wrong. So I think that it's been too easy. So when you look at something like a big SUV, that doesn't say to me a language of survival at all. It gives a very wrong message, and we've grown up with these objects which are facilitating a beautiful life, but at the same time they're actually killing us. They're suffocating our freedom in a certain way. So I keep thinking, you know, democratically, if we took the concept of choice of vehicles out of society, and I know that's very controversial, and we produced a city car, what should that be? And I'm interested in flocking strategies where things move like this, not drive linearly, yeah? They move like this. We've had satellite navigation now for at least 15 years. We've had proximity sensors for longer than that. All you need is to put those into these bubbles, which actually are very economic in the way they're built because they need to be lightweight. And the reason that they need to be lightweight is that the one behind here is actually a street lamp. So the idea is you get into these cars, you tell it where you want to go, and you meet people, and you put your shopping underneath, and they run effortlessly. And actually, I know they said it works with electricity, but I think it would be better with like a compressed air because there's no weight associated with that. So it'd be carbon and solar, and what happens is that they have a solar gain during the day, and then at night you park them, and they lift up on this stick. You get out first, of course, and then they go up on that stick, and they're a street lamp. So they liberate space for human beings.
Ross, how realistic is this? Because we were discussing before, we're all like science fiction buffs here, of course.
Sure.
So we were saying, well, yeah, you said everything that man imagines or woman imagines is going to be reality once, you know, in the future. So you were talking about Metropolis, Fritz Lang, and cars flying. I was into teleportation, but still.
I know.
How realistic is this? Because I know you work with engineers when you do your research. You're like realistic.
This Paola this is everything I know packaged into an object where I've put my sort of organic ego in a drawer, and I've tried to be fundamental in the way that, you know, capturing a human being in a bubble. I think that level of feminine imagery is very, very important. The cleaning up of society. So the difference between this being a computer rendering and not is only money.
That's interesting.
It's only money.
What about this? Also?
Oh, this one. Oh, this is cool. This is
organic architecture.
Yeah.
This is where we get into the architecture, which is still kind of an object architecture.
Well, guess who commissioned this?
Who commissioned
this? This will shock you. Swarovski, the crystal company, commissioned this because they're a $3.5 billion company.
I thought it was Hershey's. It looks like a big Hershey's kiss.
Yeah, maybe I need to go that route. Good idea. I'll talk to you later about that. No, I like talking to companies about not what they do, but what they could do. So the impact they can have on society is that they are a healthy and wealthy company. So they might start with crystal, but they might end up developing cars. I think you know, and I talk to them that way.
Japanese style.
Yeah, you know, I'm notorious for going into wooden factories and saying, let's make it in plastic, or, you know, they hate me for it, but eventually they come around to that way of thinking. This is something I've been thinking about for a long time. It's something which develops ideas for off-grid, and this will relate to my friends here today. I mean, off-grid can have a lot of meanings. You know, if you go off-grid and become autonomous, you can be also politically autonomous. And now with ways that we communicate together, maybe being modern is not in a city anymore. Maybe being modern is being like that, in the Bucky-Fullian, let's go for it kind of way. Of course, we can build that stuff today. It's a carbon matrix. It has a pixelization on the skin, which means that you embed different materials and functions where you need them, so that it breathes. It brings solar panel energy.
Is it prefabricated?
Sorry?
Is it prefabricated?
It would. It's built in a factory, yeah. And that it's a house like that. So basically, that's what you buy, and it's funded by the wind turbine, and that's it. And actually, it can go anywhere. It can go in the snow. It can go anywhere. I'd like to live in that. I'd like to have one in Europe, one in the States, and one in the East. And that's how I'd live and work. And I'd get on the internet and I'd stay.
And this is truly
Oh, yeah,
in the
this
snow.
one.
I mean, it's interesting because just to tell you, Ross and Arturo and Andreas have met here, but you know, even though they come from different backgrounds in terms of research or in terms of education and so on and so forth, it's very interesting how under this agenda of thinking of the world as a whole system and thinking of architecture and design as fitting within an infrastructure, there are so many similarities. I hope you were as surprised as I was. So tell us about this Alpine Capsule.
Well, the thing is, I'm working on a space program too, I'm a bit jealous of these gentlemen too, because they're doing something that I'd love to do, and there shouldn't be any jealousy anyway in the world. So actually getting together with them will open up our lives. It will, because we'll do something together. I can feel it. So the thing is, we will. We won't go into space together, that's for sure. I don't think I qualify.
Why not?
Well, they're all short, aren't they? No, there is technology which exists for keeping us alive in extreme environments. And I keep thinking, why can't we bring that back to Earth and find a way to open the mind towards the experience of nature, but not go and stay in a log cabin or anything with no running water, but to actually be super modern. So you can go into this pod, which is lovely and warm, it's absolutely perfect, everything's in there. So you can actually be anywhere in the world. In this case, it's in the Dolomites, it's in Corvara, because that's where it's being commissioned. But you could put one where you could see Aurora Borealis, you could put one next to the Great Wall of China. Now, the magical idea there is that if you want to have total respect for nature, you can be super technological. You don't copy nature. That's rule one. Don't copy nature. You ingest, you bring it through the human experience, and out it comes. If you want to produce something that dematerializes it in a respectful way in every season, what do? Do you do a green one? Do you do a blue one? Do you do a brown one? No, you don't. You mirror it. And if you look at Cloudgate by Anish Kapoor in Chicago, in Millennium Park, it is incredible because it dematerializes to such an extent that it's a gift back to society. So when you see this, it reflects every light condition, every scenario that it's in. But interestingly enough, when you're in it, because it uses a special coating technology which only exists today, you can see through it. So you can be naked inside and nobody can see you. You can see the stars. You can be in there and reconnect with nature, but not in a primitive way. I think, and that somebody was talking from the fashion group about, the world in which we live and the economic situation we're in right now. We can't go back to the Middle Ages where we drank beer because it was the only way to make our water hygienic or to wear these raggy clothes. I think we should reinvent ourselves, and this is all clean, pure, fat-free thinking, and it's very similar to, you'll see some other things, I'm sure, which are very similar, but maybe up in heaven rather than.
Now here are more drawings from the capsule.
Right, okay.
Are you already at the level of a prototype or not yet?
We've got it's all priced out. I work with Mitz Kanada, who's the great engineer from Arups. He's amazing, Mitz. And yeah, we're all priced up. The thing is it was commissioned by a man who at the age of 24 carried wood up the mountain and built himself a building, Moritz. This is a location which has 360-degree views of pink mountains at 6 o'clock. He's one of these men who flies a little aircraft down to Venice to have a coffee. He's a really modern guy. He's an amazing lifestyle.
Not very responsible though there, huh?
Well, maybe he has two.
Yeah.
Well, no, sorry. No, it's only a little light aircraft. Don't worry about it. No, so the thing is, I'm at a stage now where I know that this idea could really grow. And I'm not sure if Moritz has the wherewithal, because he's quite I don't want to say simple man, but the thing is that I could have easily just designed a log cabin for him and got something built.
No, he would have gone to somebody else for a log
exactly,
cabin.
Yeah. Do we have an amazing idea on paper, or do we absolutely make rubbish? I think sometimes it's better to have an amazing idea on paper, ready to be realized, than something that's sort of irrelevant and watered down. When we think about the future, if I can just say this, because I had this epiphany recently, I had kind of amazing thought that human beings, you know, like, how can we visualize the future? Because all we know is what we know now, and we only know the past. How can we see these things for the future? It's kind of an amazing thought that we are not fed any real education except through movies or people's ideas or, you know, you understand me? It's kind of interesting thought.
Well, the truth is that any kind of fantasy is based on reality in most cases, but it's a stretch. Like, you know, I was thinking that this architecture reminds a lot The Endless House by Kistler and some of the organic and visionary architecture. Only it's done much better because the technology has advanced, but I think that our vision of the future, I mean, there's the dystopic and the utopian one.
Absolutely.
But the utopian one is, as you said before, it's clean and...
well, you know, the 60s was amazing with all these people experimenting from Kurokawa through to, you know, Coupe Himmelblau. They were trying really amazing things with bubbles and inflating buildings. It just couldn't be made. We live in an age now where most things can be made. It's only the money, you know, and money's virtual anyway. So, you know, at the end of the day, you know, I mean, we're in Germany, and I just make, you know, when Germany wanted to mobilize itself, they had no money, and they went and built all that amazing military machine virtually. I don't want to get into that, but the thing is, it's so virtual anyway, so why don't you just go on and do it? Why don't we lift humanity? When I was growing up, I thought by now, you know, when I was 5, I thought by the age of 50, the world would be all white and clean. And one of the reasons that society is dirty is because everything's covered in soot from engines. You go into a rainforest, you can lick a leaf in a rainforest. It's clean. You can't lick a leaf in a city.
No,
because we've got a coating of carbon. It's true.
That's where I'm going to move to architecture and vision on the licking a leaf image, which is beautiful and
lick
powerful.
the leaf. Don't lick the leaf.
I'm going to move to Arturo and Andreas. I have written here a little bit your philosophy and the idea that what you focus on is, once again, processing of resources. It's another way, a more architectural and process-orientated way of saying the same. It's about learning from nature the structure. Sometimes you're closer to biomimicry and to a more scientific approach to the learning from science. But you're pretty much in the same vein because it's architecture and vision. So it's about, once again, imagining the possibilities of the future based on the technologies of the present. Right? So you want to, right here, we don't have to, we don't have to go into this.
I want to come back what Ross said about, we have history and we have future. From history we can learn, but how do we imagine, how do we develop the future? And that's actually the starting point of our company, that realizing that to do architecture which is projected into the future, you need to create a vision. You have to create an idea how you want to, where you would like the future to go. You can't plan it. There's many things happening, like accidents, things which determine, but if we just do what we know, we get stuck in history and we don't develop. So that's very important that we see the next steps and we progress and push it on. Else we still would think the planet is flat.
Well, it's quite interesting because you have the same issue, which is convincing other people that there needs to be this push made into vision, which is maybe not immediately a money-making pursuit. But, well, you know, let's focus for a second on the slides, but you'll be surprised here because the interesting thing is that this is architecture and vision, but Ross did a very similar, more essential maybe in form, but very similar realized tree that also had various technological uses, and that could be used in urban spaces. Do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Maybe I can do it.
Yeah, sure.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Don't worry, it's going to turn on. Just magic.
So first of all, congratulations, Ross, for your work. Really amazing. I didn't know the last project, so congratulations. Also, it's true, there is really something, we have something, I mean, with all the respect, something in common. So I think if we are here today all together, it's not...
You can present my work next time.
So what about Air3?
Air3 is a project it's an urban sculpture that merged together technology with nature with the goal to clean the air. All we know that the city today, our metropolis are getting, unfortunately, less healthy. The quality of the air is getting worse and worse. So as a designer, we feel like, what can we do to make this, to improve the situation? The air tree, in fact, process the air, breathing it, and deliver clean, fresh air in this kind of oasis, which is all around this culture, where you can stay there for relaxation, but it's also a social space where you can meet, where you can talk with people. It's a little bit what was in the Renaissance time, the fountains and the beautiful squares, which had a really important value as a social place.
And a little bit also like the oxygen bars in Japan.
The idea is to locate this culture in places where you have a density of pedestrians and also of cars. So the idea is, with this oasis, you can stop and you can have a break also from the sound point of view, because the water blobbing and also falling like a fountain will break the noise of the coming from the car. So it's powered by solar panel, and also there's this kind of branches to deliver during the summer sprayed water to create a microclimate which will be, fresher even if outside is warmer. So the reference for this project is the tree, because the tree finally does that function for us.
And what is the reference for this project instead? It's the same idea of self-containment, but it's about delivering a function instead in another kind of extreme environment. Did you do this with Architecture for Humanity? Was
no,
it a competition? You did it by yourself? Mm-hmm.
Another project for Architecture for Humanity. Maybe Andreas want to go through.
Yes. Hello?
Don't worry, because magically when you start speaking, they turn it on.
Yes, this little mobile building here is actually, and don't laugh, it's a toilet. But why should we as designers or architects design toilets? Well, very easily. Having access to toilets, having access to hygiene, having access to potable water is one of the major problems on our planet still for at least 1/3 or 1/4 of the people living on the planet. If you look on Africa, like women and children are carrying pots of water, like 2 hours each day to have their daily water. It's really dramatic. And I think there is where organic design is really coming to that point, Paula, you made, that we're dealing with resources. And we think that resources are actually the real value, the real money of the planet. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, that keeps us alive. Money is virtual, but this is the values. And so we proposed this little mobile unit, which would be possible to bring to a village, and it has a water tank inside with a water recycling system, so the water there can be used much longer. And there's a toilet in there which would work on composting technology, a very simple, low-tech, but very well-proven technology. And it would allow people to basically, if it's a village of 100 people, it would allow maybe 50 people to save 2 to 3 hours of their day carrying water, which they could use for education, to learn how to read and learn how to write. So it's little things which could have a big impact.
And here I go to Desert Seal, which, can you see how amazingly beautiful this project is? When I saw it the first time, I just fell in love. So who wants to talk about Desert Seal?
So Desert Seal is a tent for one person for the desert. Everybody knows that the desert is a very extreme environment, but still beautiful, amazing beautiful. 1/3 of the land of our planet are covered by desert, so it's a reality. This tent was commissioned by the European Space Agency that came to us asking to think about a project that make use of space technology down to Earth for a terrestrial application. So we were very happy because that was we were dreaming for very long. And we came out with different ideas, and this one was one of a series. And we decided to develop the desert seal in particular. The shape is kind of dictated by aerodynamics issues because in the desert the wind is very strong, but also because we want to enter inside the tent by standing, because I'm very tall, so every time I go inside the tent I find so uncomfortable. And but also because studying the deserts, we discovered that the air get cooler higher you go from the ground, let's say. That's the same principle the camels they use. That's why the nose is so tall. It's not because aesthetic, it's because they can go down with the neck to eat and drink on the ground, but also they can breathe very high. So if there is a big drop in temperature, the idea is to breathe this air with a fan which is on top, which is powered by a little battery, which is linked to the solar panel over there, to bring the air inside. So this is this flow of air, fresh air, which make the habitat, the place where you sleep, much more comfortable.
Which is the idea of the wind tower in much Islamic architecture.
Exactly. The same principle, which is 5,000 years old.
I need to make it go a little faster, because unfortunately, the people that are in the panel after hours are friends. And so, unfortunately, so I'm really trying to stay in. And also, the reflecting material is to try and not absorb the sun.
Also coming from the space
and
application.
Insulating, also coming from space. Yeah, it's just a fabulous integration, just perfect synthesis of needs and materials.
And it's
available.
all inflatable, because you can go inside the backpack. It's 5 kilos and 5 minutes with the pump.
And then, let's get into the real things here, a moon base. So tell us, in about 50 seconds, please tell us about the moon base.
That's difficult, but how we may live on the moon once in future. It's also an inflatable building, because it has to be packed in a rocket to go there. So, but to make people live in such an environment, we need to protect it, because radiation is one of the major problems on the moon. And that's why it's outside packed with moon dust, which making a big shield of radiation shielding. And maybe just quickly, we do quite some space work to add the biomimicry thing, because I think we're living in such an interesting time where we not just explore and discover nature and learn from nature, but we do things nature doesn't show us. We invented flying. We had birds. We wanted to fly like birds, but there's no animal which has flown to space, not that we know of. So we are in
never thought about it that way.
Absolutely interesting time where we can do things going beyond. And that's why we are so excited about space exploration. We see the challenge how people live in another completely unknown world, and how we can find the means to make that real.
I had the best intentions to leave you some time to ask questions, and instead, I already ran out of my time, which is pretty sad. I'm sorry about it. Just to wrap it up, they were actually worried, how are you going to fill 45 minutes? Look at this. I mean, it's just about letting them speak. You're just great. I just hope just in closing that you realize, that the world realizes, because you realize it because you're here, but that the world realizes what goes into this kind of work. It's not simply engineering, architecture, and design, but it's about really being curious about everything, about nature, about art, about economics, about mathematics, a curiosity for science. It's about really keeping the eyes and the ears and the soul open, and that's what the greatest designers of today are. They're really Renaissance people of today. So, thank you guys. Thank you.